Hey guys, and welcome to All Around Hockey, the new YouTube channel for the all around hockey fan. There's lots of news that came out of the National Hockey League today. We finally got the answer on the Leo Carlsson saga a day early. What are the ramifications now for the Anaheim Ducks and the Philadelphia Flyers? Also, Toronto has made another coaching move, and they made some changes to their front office staff. And the Dylan Larkin, Steve Yzerman chess match continues on. So today, first bit of news we had was Leo Carlsson and the Anaheim Ducks have officially matched the Leo Carlsson contract at 5 years, $18 million a year, 90 million in totality. They have now matched the largest contract in NHL history and giving themselves less than $10 million in cap space. According to the ownership there in Anaheim, they said it was a quote a pretty easy match. They said that Pat Verbeek's done a good job managing the cap to give them the ability to match that contract, and so there's a pretty good pat on the back there for Pat Verbeek. Some people haven't been giving him that much lately, so the ownership still has his back for sure. Obviously, Verbeek came out and said that he wasn't expecting $18 million in a contract offer from Leo Carlsson when he said that he was going to match any contract offer from Leo Carlsson. I don't know if he was expecting $18 million and for Leo Carlsson to become the highest paid player in the National Hockey League, but that's what happened. So now he's kind of said that he's got some more moves to make. Leo also talked about the situation. He said that it was a contract that about 99% of the people would have taken themselves, but he really wanted the Anaheim Ducks to match it. I know there was rumors of him possibly wanting Anaheim because he took such a big contract offer, but he kind of squashed that a little bit today by saying that he was really hoping that Anaheim would match it, and he always wanted to stay with the Anaheim Ducks. So it seems that the whole situation turned out well for Pat Verbeek and the Ducks. But now, what did they do next? They still have less than $10 million in cap space now, and they still have to get Cutter Gauthier signed. And that whole situation right now. So what's the possibility for Anaheim to do next? Some rumors are possibly they might move Alex Killorn. Another name was thrown out there was Frank Vetrano. Chris Kreider could possibly be another move that gets moved out to clear up some cap space. You know, they still need to get some of that roster constructed there. And Cutter Gauthier, you got to think is going to be want more than $10 million in his contract now that Leo Carlsson has gotten 18. You know, I think the rumor was they wanted to get him around 10 to 12, but now with the whole Carlsson contract, he might be up to about 13 million. We'll have to see what happens there. But for the Philadelphia Flyers, a couple episodes ago, we went over the fact that they might possibly offer sheet Adam Fantilli if they didn't get Leo Carlsson. Those rumors have since been kind of squashed a little bit. Doesn't sound like they're going to try to make another run for another top young centerman. Instead, according to Dave Pagnotta, they don't really have a plan B in mind in terms of going after another top young center. I think their plan is now just kind of get their guys wrapped up. Michikov's got a contract extension next year. He's an RFA next year. You know, a lot of teams might be gunning for Danny Briere's guys now that he did this whole thing with Leo Carlsson. Also, you know, could they possibly be looking at signing Porter Martone? He came in pretty big after his year at Michigan State and, was pretty impressive for them in the playoffs. That's somebody they probably want to get locked up sooner rather than later, even though it's going to be his rookie season. But now that he's kind of opened up the floodgates for these big RFA contracts, Danny Briere, you might want to try to get those guys signed up as quickly as you can. I do think there's possibility that they could be going after another 5-on-5 defenseman. So we'll see what happens there. But it doesn't sound like they're going to go after like Connor Bedard or Anna Fantilli. Kind of sounds like they just shoot their shot with Leo Carlsson. And obviously, they kind of called Pat Verbeek's bluff, and Pat Verbeek still matched that contract and stuck to his word. So that whole situation is now figured out. And Leo Carlsson will be back with the Anaheim Ducks officially now and will not be signing with the Philadelphia Flyers. Another bit of news that happened today, Steve Sullivan, the former assistant coach with the Toronto Maple Leafs now, is going to be the head coach of the Toronto Marlies, taking over John Gruden's spot. Obviously, the Marlies just won the Calder Cup this past season, so pretty good move for them to give Steve Sullivan that job. He seems like somebody with a lot of potential to possibly move up to a head coaching job. In times, he did really well coming in with Toronto and kind of improving the team just a little bit. So we'll see what he does with the Marlies. Also, John Chaika is a big analytics guy, and he kind of let a lot of the analytics staff go today. So he's kind of bringing in his whole new team into Toronto. Lots of people were let go there, so hopefully they can find good jobs there. But John Chaika kind of wants his own people in. So that was another bit of news that came out today, was that he is kind of bringing in his own people to his analytics department. Obviously, John comes from an analytical background. So does Jim Hiller, his coach. So, they definitely are going to be very heavy on the analytics this upcoming season and for years beyond that, too, as long as Chaika and Hiller are in charge. So that was a little bit of news that came out today. Also, the other big news that came out was Dylan Larkin has increased his trade list finally to one team, the Dallas Stars. So now you can add the Dallas Stars along with the Vegas Golden Knights, Florida Panthers, and Minnesota Wild. And the first bit of news that came out was the asking price was for Wyatt Johnston. Obviously, that was quickly turned down by Jim Nill. He was not interested in trading a guy who's 7 years younger than Dylan Larkin and is a 40-plus goal scorer on a consistent basis. So obviously, that was quickly denied. But there's a possibility that there could be a trade around Jason Robertson. A lot of people have had that linked to a possible 1-for-1 trade of Dylan Larkin for Jason Robertson. However, what might hold that up is Steve Yzerman and his reluctance to kind of give out big contracts. He sounded like came out the other day that he was a little bit reluctant to give a big contract to Alex DeBrincat, his own 40-goal scorer from this past season. It sounds like he might not be willing to give Alex the kind of money that he's going to want on the open market. Guys like Kirill Kaprizov getting $17 million. Jason Robertson turning down a $15 million contract offer. You're probably thinking around that type of range, around maybe 13, 14, 15 million for Alex. And Steve's not really wanting to go big on those contracts. It's worked out for him a little bit in the past. Obviously, he got Moritz Seider locked up to one of the best contracts in NHL today. And also Lucas Raymond, he got him locked up to one of the best contracts in the NHL today. And you could say the same thing about Dylan Larkin, which is another reason why he's so hesitant to trade him, is because he signed to such a good contract for the next 5 years. Especially with all those bigger contracts coming out and about, Dylan's looks better and better by the day. Even Elliot Friedman said in his 32 podcast the other day that, the stock only kind of went up with the whole Leo Carlsson situation with Dylan. So you can understand why he's asked for a Wyatt Johnston, but you can also understand why Jim Nill quickly turned that down. As far as a trade with Dallas goes, if Steve Yzerman's reluctant to give Alex DeBrincat that type of money, who knows if he's willing to give that type of money to Jason Robertson, and also who knows if Jason Robertson even wants to come to Detroit. That's another factor. I know he played here at Little Caesars for a few years, and I think Detroit's always kind of been a destination he's liked, but now things have kind of changed. But you have to think, as a Red Wing fan, does that work out in your favor if you brought in a consistent 40 goal scorer like Jason Robertson to team up with Alex DeBrincat? However, you would still be a little short up the middle. But you got to think a lot of centers would want to come to the Detroit Red Wings if they had Alex DeBrincat, Jason Robertson, and Lucas Raymond all locked up long term. But however, that's the question. Can Steve Yzerman lock those people up long term, or is his reluctance going to get the better of him in those type of situations? We'll have to see what happens there. As far as not trading for a Jason Robertson from Dallas, they have a Liam Bichelle, with Dallas. That's one big time defenseman that's pretty young, and he provides some height and good defensive abilities. Rope Hintz is somebody I've always really liked his game. There's not too much of an age difference between him and Dylan, but he's always been solid center up the middle. However, he was hurt for their playoff run, and that kind of really derailed their chances of beating Minnesota. So you wonder about that possibility happening. You just have to see, I guess, what happens next. There was a trade that the Dallas Stars had earlier in the offseason, in which they were going to trade Maverick Bork and Thomas Harley, which that came out for Zach Werenski. That came out recently. That was the trade offer for Werenski, in which it was going to go through, but Zach kind of turned it down when that whole situation kind of escalated a little too quickly for everybody, I think. So you wonder if they'd be willing to trade a Thomas Harley again. I don't know if they would personally, just because I think the one person they were willing to trade Thomas Harley for was Zach Werenski, and it didn't happen. That's one of the very few players that's an upgrade over Thomas Harley. Thomas is a very solid defenseman, and he still works really well with Mira Heiskanen. So I don't know if they'd be willing to trade a Thomas Harley in that type of a deal, if or not. I know we went over a little bit with Carolina and them having some NHL ready people in that type of a trade for Dylan Larkin, and I think Dallas has a lot of those assets too. It just kind of comes down to what Stevie wants at the end of the day and what Jim Neal's willing to give up. So we'll see what happens there. But that's a lot of the news that happened today, guys. Let me know down in the comments how you're feeling about all these news that happened. Anaheim fans, how you feeling now that Leo Carlsson's officially back? You don't have to worry about him going to the Philadelphia Flyers anymore, but you have to worry a little bit about that cap space now. So what do you think Pat Verbeek's next move is going to be? Let me know down in the comments below. And Duck fans, Flyer fans, are you guys a little upset that Leo Carlsson did not was matched by the Ducks? Did you kind of expect it? Or what do you think Danny Briere's next big move should be, if there is one? Or are you kind of happy with the team going in? You made a pretty good playoff run this past season. Are you happy there? And then Toronto fans, the coaching situation, the analytics situation, let me know what you guys feel like there. And Red Wings fans, how are you feeling about Dylan Larkin finally increasing his trade list to one team? And Dallas fans, do you guys even want a Dylan Larkin? And what? Give me what you guys think would happen in a trade proposal. Let me see what you guys' trade proposal is. I'd like to talk to you guys a little bit more. Again, this is All Around Hockey, the new YouTube channel for the All Around Hockey fan. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Love to hear from you guys more, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.